The squared circle. What is the deal with this term? Why do wrestlers refer to it so often? And what exactly does it mean anyway? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is the host. And on this channel, we are all about exploring the world of professional wrestling together. We examine the squared circle in this video because there's more to it than meets the eye. If you find yourself enjoying our content here, please do share this with other wrestling fans and consider subscribing. Doing both those things helps us continue to grow and produce more great videos for you to enjoy. Professional wrestling rings are typically built from a canvas mat that sits over top of a wooden board. Nowadays, instead of tightening the ropes, the turnbuckles are just there for safety purposes. The ropes were originally tightened by the turnbuckles, creating a tight, square-shaped boundary for the ring. For example, when Hulk Hogan says, "This is my ring," he isn't talking about any old ring. He's talking about the squared circle. In fact, wrestlers often express ownership over the squared circle, whether it be through a promo or by standing over it after a big victory. They brawl through the crowd, up the steel steps, and even into the commentary booth. At the end of the day, though, it all leads back to the squared circle. It's where the finish of the match takes place. Whether the ending occurs via pinfall, submission, or count out, it happens inside the squared circle. And since the squared circle is the location of all this action, it's only natural that wrestlers talk about it so often. This goes all the way back to the early days of professional wrestling, too. If you look down on a wrestling ring from above, such as via a camera angle overhead, you can see that the ring is a rough circle. Of course, it's square, but the ropes form a circular boundary. Maybe the term squared circle is used to describe the ropes specifically. Perhaps it refers to the fighting surface within the ring. Or maybe it's just a term used to set the wrestling ring apart from all other sporting arenas. Back then, wrestlers didn't always wrestle under a fixed roof. It's where all the athletic competition takes place. It's where rivalries are settled. Notice how the wrestlers refer to it. Pay attention to how they interact with it. And marvel at all the amazing athletic feats that take place inside it. In a sense, it's the heart and soul of wrestling. Let us know in the comments below if there are any other wrestling topics you'd like to see us cover in future episodes. Till then, keep watching wrestling, and be sure to join us back here every Wednesday for more. Some matches took place outside, and some even occurred inside the squared circle of a circus ring. Due to this, wrestlers needed to establish who owned the squared circle in order to determine who had the home field advantage. Sometimes this meant physically attacking your opponent before the bell even rang. As time progressed, the cables became more of a safety feature than anything else, but the name stuck. Think about it. A wrestler-esque entrance theme blasts, and the crowd cheers as they make their way through the audience and up the aisle towards the ring. Once they get close enough, though, their music abruptly stops, and suddenly they hear the unmistakable sound of their opponent's theme song. Before they step foot in the ring, the two enemies stare each other down in the center of the aisle. There's nowhere to hide. It's just two competitors sizing each other up prior to battle. This stare down never takes place anywhere else. It only occurs in the moments leading up to entering the squared circle. This is essentially why today's modern wrestling rings are known as the squared circle. It's a simple explanation, but it gets us one step closer to understanding why wrestlers talk about the squared circle so much. Since the ropes are made out of a very strong material, they don't really need to be tightened like they used to. They're still secured to the turnbuckles, though, just in case the ropes begin to sag or loosen during a match, which can sometimes happen if they're jostled around too much. If the cables aren't there to support the ropes, they could fall down to the mat below, which would make it unsafe for both the wrestlers and anyone in attendance. Around the perimeter of this board are a series of steel cables attached to ropes that hold up the top portion of the ring. These cables run vertically, and they are commonly referred to as turnbuckles. You'll hear wrestlers mention them quite frequently when referring to an opponent getting a leverage advantage by being near their corner of the ring. When a wrestler has control of the turnbuckle, they can use it to ram into their opponent or use it for leverage when attempting to pin them. It's that raised, square structure found in every wrestling ring. You may not have realized, however, that's what it's actually called. Most wrestling fans, and even casual observers, will simply call it the ring. Even myself, I rarely refer to it as anything else. So why is it called the squared circle? But without further ado, let's get into this squared circle thing. I'm sure most of you already know what the squared circle is just by looking at it. To understand why it's called that, we first need to learn a bit about the history of the wrestling ring itself. The term turnbuckle comes from the days when these cables were actually used to tighten the ropes of the ring, and each end was fitted with a large metal buckle. The reason we went over all this is because it directly relates to why the wrestling ring is called the squared circle. In reality, it's just a term wrestlers use to refer to the ring itself. Another reason why wrestlers often talk about the squared circle is because it's the one place where they have to face off against their opponents. After the match begins, wrestlers fight all over the arena. There's also another theory on why the ring is called the squared circle, and it's due to the shape of the fighting surface. We may never truly know why the squared circle is called the squared circle, but what we do know is that it's the most important part of every wrestling show. So the next time you watch a wrestling show, take a moment to appreciate the squared circle. And that's going to do it for this edition of the What is the Deal with